Is retatrutide the same as tirzepatide? In this video, we're going to uncouple exactly what retatrutide is, or retatrutide. We're going to show you how this triple agonist has a completely different set of actions than tirzepatide, and why so many people get it wrong just thinking they're interchangeable. They're not, and so we're going to jump into some of the myths. By the way, retatrutide is not FDA approved. It's still in the research category, but there are some very interesting data points coming up showing that it may outperform tirzepatide in many different functions. So I'm Regan Archibald, founder of Ageless Future. We believe that if you go deep into your health and you run your body the same way you'd run your business or anything else you're passionate about, you want to start with the data. So a good scientific method requires a hypothesis, it requires observation, it requires assessing the results, changing and modifying things. That's where using peptides on your own without medical supervision is not recommended. This is not medical advice. This is me sharing with you some of the insights that I've seen in the studies and also in some of the many patients that my medical team is working with on their longevity pathway. First of all, what's the difference? Tirzepatide. You've heard of Ozempic, GLP-1. Tirzepatide is a GLP-1 plus a GIP, so it's two different pathways. So that's this co-agonist. And an agonist is something that turns on that pathway, or it's an accelerant, whereas inhibition is like a braking system. So everything we're talking about with retatrutide and tirzepatide, these are agonists. These are just turning on the gas pedal. GLP-1 it's got so many cool benefits, outside of it lowers inflammation, it helps with brain function, it downregulates the appetite, and this is probably the biggest benefit, it helps stabilize blood sugar. And we found that that was very powerful, but it had side effects when used alone, and now we're seeing all of the crazy things with Ozempic where people are having gastroparesis. That's where your stomach just stops moving nutrients. We're finding that there's issues with people's thyroid, their hair loss that's been reported. And then the biggest one and the most risky in my opinion is the muscle mass that's being lost. So bring in tirzepatide. Tirzepatide has a bit of a safer profile. It seems to lower hemoglobin A1C even better than just GLP-1 alone. Just by adding this GIP, now what you're getting is better insulin sensitivity. You're getting that signal can be muted a little bit, that GLP-1. So like an Ozempic or semaglutide has a much stronger GLP-1 pulse. Tirzepatide is 4 to 5 times weaker based on the milligram per milliliter dosing. It's 4 to 5 times weaker, but it does have that GIP. Because we're talking about tirzepatide versus retatrutide, this is exciting because what the research looks like for retatrutide is now it's a triple agonist. So you've got these nice convergence of energy production. So the third peptide that comes with retatrutide is called glucagon. And glucagon is made by the liver and it stabilizes blood sugar when your body's not eating. So if you think about your pancreas, it's spitting out insulin only when you eat. You want that guy to be lazy. We just want our pancreas to be well cared for. It's like a beautiful pet that you have that's getting older. You don't want to run your dog too hard as they age. You just want to take care of it. But that's the pancreas. You just want it to secrete insulin, spit some out when you have high food intake, and then you just want it to go quiet again. But it's the glucagon and it's the liver that helps stabilize that blood sugar pathway. So the phenomenal thing about retatrutide is it changes all the signaling in the body. Not only is it like, okay, now you've got this GLP-1, so you get a little bit of appetite suppression, but that is about 8 times weaker than what the GLP-1 pulse is, about 8 times weaker than what you'll see in like the semaglutide. And it's about 4 to 5 times weaker than what's in tirzepatide. So what does that mean? Well, so far what we're seeing in the research is fewer side effects. Until you start cranking up to the higher doses, which the higher dose is like 12 milligrams per week. The new Triumph 4 study that just came out in December of 2025. I guess depending on when you're watching this video, that may not be recent, but that study proved that the higher doses, people had dramatic weight loss. I mean, 28%. The average person lost 71 pounds. They also had a complete reduction. Many of the people, I believe 16%, had complete reduction in osteoarthritic pain. So these GLP-1s do something really magical, but what they found is that they were able to preserve lean muscle mass. And in any of the studies, you compare Tirzepatide to Retatrutide, there's just no comparison, because that glucagon, what it does is it's turning on this PGC1 alpha pathway, so you get better energy expenditure. It's like having an engine that's just utilizing all of the resources 10 times more effectively in your body. It's almost like having a regenerative battery. You know, in Tesla, for example, when you go downhill, it's recharging the battery. And that's similar to what glucagon is doing in Retatrutide. And then you have better insulin signaling, so the insulin can actually get the glucose into the cell and start the engine. So really helpful for the brain, helps keep energy stable throughout the day, where you're not craving the foods and you're not distracted all the time. Seems to work really well with the ADHD with a lot of these GLP-1s. Does delay gastric emptying, so you've got to be careful on that. The higher doses of Retatrutide, people also had this strange sensation in their skin, and the heart rate does seem to go up. And in most cases, it's about 8 to 10 beats per minute. But that does seem to stabilize, at least what we're seeing in the research. Once again, there's still more work to be done before it is FDA approved. But Retatrutide, the thing I like about some of the research around it is it's like putting a turbo in your engine. It's like you get this nice little performance aspect of it, and the muscle preservation is probably the most important thing. Some of the things that the studies show, this was a comparative study, and this was conducted in 2025. This was a meta-analysis using randomized controlled trials. And it was conducted at several international obesity and diabetes centers. And they were comparing the dual agonist with the triple agonist. And the triple agonist being Retatrutide, and they pooled all the phase 2 trial data to evaluate the differences. There's 878 participants across the 3 Retatrutide randomized control trials, plus several Tirzepatide randomized control trial cohorts. It was peer-reviewed, and all the trials were randomized, double-blind, placebo control. So very good data. And what the analysis described is Tirzepatide, the dual agonist, the GLP-1 and GIP receptor against agonist, and Retatrutide, the triple agonist, found that Retatrutide or Retatrutide can achieve greater percentage of weight loss, but also showing that it had fewer gastrointestinal side effects, and showed that there's a different signaling molecule in both of these particular peptides, but because of Retatrutide's glucagon and the way that it changes the heart rate, some of the skin sensations at the higher dosing, it clearly shows these are not interchangeable molecules. The symphony, it changes. It's almost like when you have a band, and this band is playing some good music like Tirzepatide, they're putting out some hits, and then you bring in a new vocalist, a new lead singer, and suddenly it doesn't quite sound the same. And I think this is really interesting, because now that you have glucagon there, instead of looking at Retatrutide as like, this is the weight loss drug of the century, we may need to reframe it. And we'll see what Eli Lilly decides to do as they roll it out to the market. But I think the biggest thing is that this will now be more of a performance enhancement. It'll be a way of optimizing body composition, mastering your whole metabolic system, working on some of the mitochondrial peptides like SS31 with Retatrutide. I mean, the future is so exciting when it comes to these peptides. And I think Retatrutide is just one of those that, we're looking at it short-sightedly and not looking at the longevity benefits. So for those of you who would love to go deeper, work with a team who does not just prescribe single peptides, like we wouldn't just put you on Tirzepatide and say, hope it goes well, but we actually read your blood labs. We run a comprehensive blood panel over 120 different markers and determine what peptides and what your body needs to thrive. We do hormones, all kinds of regenerative medicine, helped over 70,000 clients, and I hope that this is something where you look at as protect your body, protect your health. We only use 503A compounding pharmacies. There's a lot of doctors out there using research use only, and there's many of you who are purchasing those online. That can be dangerous. So work with the medical team. I provided you access in the show notes below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you on the next video.